What's up, everyone? I want to talk about the importance of Scott Pilgrim. And now we go back to the Comic Con days, and Scott Pilgrim wasn't that big of a hit. But once the creator met Edgar Wright of the Shaun of the Dead series, they came together and made Scott Pilgrim an international hit. Now, when this came out, Marvel and DC were kind of coasting. We weren't into Iron Man. We had Iron Man in the Spider-Man movies, and we were still early in the Batman Begins era. But these studios saw what Edgar Wright did and Scott Pilgrim, and they're like, listen, we gotta get on these Comic Con. This is where the money's at. And it's because it's Scott Pilgrim that they said, all right, there's an audience here, and they could cater to it. Without Scott Pilgrim, I don't think the Marvel and DC doubled down, because they were like, we're gonna let this independent book about some punk kid trounce us in the movies. So I have a theory that if Marvel didn't double down, we might have got had an independent wave of indie upstart movies, kind of like in the 90s where we had The Shadow and The Phantom and The Rocketeer and Dick Tracy. We could have got Morning Glories and Lumberjanes and the Ex Machina and a better version. I know we got the TV series, but imagine if they went all out on Why the Last Man, or and maybe like a actual movie of the Runaways, like instead they're like, no, we're going right to the source, because Scott Pilgrim did so good with Michael Cera, and with Michael Cera, like he was in Juno, and that was written by Diablo Cody, who had heavy involvement in Jennifer's Body, and Jennifer's Body kind of re-upped the teen era of, like, right after that we got the Scream reboot, requel. We got the new take on Scream, and so the horror movies. So in this pocket of time, we had Scott Pilgrim and Jennifer's Body, and everything kind of like tentacled out from that era, and we had like the MySpace era of metal, like Bring Me the Horizon and Pierce the Veil and A Day to Remember, and the retro kind of like pop rock bands like Green Day and Offspring and Sum 41 and Blink 182, and then you also had like these Under Oath and Converge and these metalcore bands breaking out. So all this is going on at the same time, and then Marvel's like, all right, we got break out the big guns and get the Avengers out here real soon. And after that, DC, they were slow to get there, but they started building the DCEU. So without that kind of indie era of punk and Scott Pilgrim, and it really pushed Marvel to pony up and start, and then more and more people were coming to Comic Con, and you had all the animes coming to Comic Con, because I would go to Comic Con in 05 and 06 up to 10, but once the anime crowd and the Walking Dead crowd started coming, the Walking Dead crowd got so big, they had to make Walker Stalker, and and now Comic Con, you go there and you feel like you're like this, walking around like this, and you have all these animes and of characters you never even heard of. The the Keck crowds there, the homesick crowds there, and you just don't even know what's going on anymore. And a lot of that's due to the amalgamation of what Scott Pilgrim started. And what, one of the things that people forget about Scott Pilgrim is, like, he put the punk rock in comic books. Now, sure, there was Love and Rockets, and there's a lot of reiteration of inspiration of that Harry Crumb era and the Love and Rockets era, where you got these artists in their basement, just like, and they had to pay for their own publishing, and like, this was the renaissance of that. Like that 80s with Love and Rockets, this was Scott Pilgrim was the pinnacle of that. All right, I'm rambling now. I've been rambling for a while. But what do you think about Scott Pilgrim pushing Marvel and DC? I think it's true.